What's going on, everybody? Curtis Wilkerson with HawgSports.com coming to you live from just outside Bridgestone Arena, where the Arkansas Razorbacks just wrapped up a gritty, tough, impressive 70-64 victory over Missouri. This is a Missouri team that challenges Arkansas in a lot of ways. They did in both games. We saw it. They're the only team that beat Arkansas in Fayetteville. Arkansas got them on the turnaround. We've talked about the Justin Smith didn't play in Arkansas and Justin Tillman didn't play at Missouri. Well, they were both on the floor tonight. And listen, when you get to postseason play, it's all about survive and advance, right? Well, that's exactly what Arkansas did. It wasn't a pretty game, but it was a great game. And Arkansas pulled out a really impressive victory. That's 12 SEC wins in a row for the Razorbacks. That's unheard of. There's something special about this team, and they're off to a good start here in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena. I took some notes because there are several things to hit on from this game. You know, I talked about it on Hog Hoops Live. You know, Arkansas has just gotten off to these notoriously bad starts against Missouri. It's crazy. Actually, in the first half, if you combine the first halves of both games against the Tigers, Arkansas shot 18 of 63. That's 28% from the field. And you can't do that and win games, especially in postseason play where it's win or go home. Well, Arkansas got off to another really slow start on the offensive end tonight. At one point I looked at it, it was about halfway, about midway through the first half, and they were at 28% again. I'm like, are you kidding me? Here we go. But it was okay, and they got down by 10 points at a time there in the first half, but it was okay because JD Notae came to the rescue. Fresh off a win in Sixth Man of the Year, JD Notae comes out and goes ballistic. He had 16 in the first half. Arkansas only scored 32 points in the first half. JD Notae had 16, provided a huge spark. You know, I mentioned Arkansas got down by 10. Well, you run into a point there where Notae, all of a sudden, he catches a ball just right outside the lane, drop steps, two-hand dunk, and that's what sparked it. Led to a timeout. Arkansas was within 8 at that point. Then he hits a step-back jumper. Then he hits a three. All of a sudden, Arkansas is right back in it. It opened up things offensively. It took the lid off. All of a sudden, Devo Davis hits a mid-range. Justin Smith gets a basket. Arkansas is right back in it. Okay, so they were able to overcome that 10-point deficit. And we've seen this over and over with this team. They just find a way to continue to claw back into games when you kind of leave them dead to rights. They did against Texas A&M. They were down 14 in the first half. They came back and won. Tonight they were down 10. They came back. I'm really impressed by this basketball team, if you can't tell. I'm also really excited to be here in Nashville. This is fantastic. But at any rate, Arkansas cuts it to 33-32 at halftime. And the second half was just a slugfest, man. I mean, an absolute slugfest. These guys were playing physical, hard, aggressive. There was a lot of fouling going on that wasn't being called. There was a lot of sloppy basketball too. I mean, I think Arkansas had 20 turnovers. I know Missouri had quite a few. The charges, man, I've never seen so many charges and offensive fouls called in a game. Unreal on both sides. Charge after charge, offensive foul, player control. It was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. But back and forth game, and really you're thinking, man, this is going to come down to the final seconds. But Arkansas finally went on a run, and it felt like they were right on the verge of it so many times there in the second half, where they get up by 2, 3, 4 points. They get a stop, and they'd have a possession where they could extend that thing out to a 2-possession lead and get a little bit more momentum going. But they never did it for the longest time, right? I mean, they kept coming up with costly turnovers, self-inflicted turnovers, and it'd lead to a layup or something on the other end, or an offensive foul, right? And Missouri would go cash in on the other end. And you started to wonder, is Arkansas ever going to be able to pull away? Well, down the stretch there, they had about a 3 or 4 minute period where they put a 13-1 run on Missouri, and Arkansas builds up a 10-point lead. So at that point, you're thinking, cool, knockout blow has landed. Arkansas is going to roll with this thing. Jeremiah Tillman fouls out. That's another big deal. We'll talk about him in a second. But what does Missouri do? They go to Parker Brown, who I forgot he was even a factor for them. We hadn't seen him the entire game, didn't play much all season. He comes in, hits a couple free throws, bangs a three, And then they get another bucket. Missouri answers with a 7-0 run. It's a 3-point game with under 2 minutes to go. Down the stretch though, Arkansas made the plays that they had to make. They weren't great. They weren't cash from the free throw line like they normally are down the stretch, but they made enough. They weren't the most efficient offensively that you would like to see down the stretch, but hey, when time's winding down on the shot clock and there's kind of a loose ball there in the lane, JD Notae just picks it up and chucks it and it goes in. Sometimes in postseason play, you need a little bit of luck to get it done. And that shot by Notae at the end, that was a little bit of luck, right? So they get it done, 70-64 win, and advance. On Hog Hoops Live, for any of you that tuned into that over the week, we talked about some of the keys to this game. If you remember, the number one was, what is Arkansas going to do with Jeremiah Tillman for Missouri? 6'10", 245 pounds, he's a monster. We anticipated that Jalen Williams is going to be out for Arkansas. Got a little excited for a minute there. He was out warming up with the team. As it turns out, that's just part of his reconditioning period as he comes back and gets ready to play. Maybe we'll see him tomorrow, maybe we'll see him Sunday. I'm not sure exactly what his timeline is, but he was out there warming up and we got excited for a minute, but he was inactive, and it brings me back to the point of somebody's got to step up and guard Jeremiah Tillman. And Connor Vanover obviously got the start. He struggled tonight. It wasn't his best game, wasn't his best performance. He'd be the first person to tell you that. So then you're looking even deeper going, what are they going to do with this guy, right? So Arkansas turns to Ethan Henderson, which is a guy that we mentioned, him or Vance Jackson. Vance Jackson got a little bit of run. I think he played 4 or 5 minutes there in the first half. Didn't bring a whole lot. He didn't hurt the team either, but he didn't do a whole lot. They turned to Ethan Henderson, and boom, immediate spark. And he did a great job, I thought, defending Tillman in the paint. He fouled him a couple times and sent him to the free throw line. That's okay. He made him work for it, and he shut him down more often than not. And then he provided a spark on the offensive end with 2 huge dunks. I mean, like big time, 2-hand, throw it down jams. That stuff is exciting, right? That's what you love to see. That gets, and it's not just like your normal layup for 2 points. When you throw down a dunk like that, your team builds momentum. And Ethan had 2 of those, and they were big ones for the Razorbacks. And we talk about shutting down Tillman, held him to 9 points below his season average, fouled him out, so he wasn't on the floor down the stretch, which is huge. And I even said this to Eric Musselman because I can't believe it. If StatCast was correct, 0 rebounds. You held that man to 0 boards when you were playing undersized and playing small. And a lot of that is credit to Ethan for the way that he played and stepped up in his minutes. And then Justin Smith, who really, Justin did not play a good first half. He was turning the ball over. He was 0-5 from the field, missed some free throws. He wasn't on the glass. Really labored through that first half, but he turned it on in a big way for Arkansas in the second half. And so he actually wound up finishing with 16 points. We got some people over here. He actually wound up finishing with 16 points and 8 rebounds. Most of all of that coming in the second half, which was huge for this Arkansas team. And he muscled up and got physical in there with Tillman, which is something that Arkansas really, really needed. And he came through. So, JD Notae goes nuts. He finishes with 27 points. I don't know that that's a career high. I think he might have topped that at Jacksonville. Is that a season high with his time at Arkansas? It might be. He had 27 off of the bench. The bench had 34 points total, which is big because especially in the first half, Arkansas starters went 3 of 14 from the field, turned the ball over 7 times. A lot of times when you see something like that happen from your starting 5, things can get away from you in a hurry. But having JD give you that spark, Ethan doing what he did, Desi Sills, who played big minutes, didn't provide a whole lot on the stat sheet, but he played tough defense, and he hit a big 3 in that first half that was huge for the Razorbacks. So really impressive job. Arkansas survives and advances. I don't know what's going on in this building right now. LSU and Ole Miss, by the time I left, it was halftime. I think LSU was winning 29-27. So we'll see what happens there. But, Arkansas, they're not going to have a lot of time to refresh and regroup. But the advantage is they're going to have more time than whoever wins this game that's going on in there right now. Obviously Ole Miss played last night. and picked up a win over South Carolina, so they're already on their second game in 2 nights. If they advance, they'll be on their 3rd game in a row. But this is an Ole Miss team that's trying to play their way into the NCAA tournament. So, you looked at all the bracketology today, and Ole Miss is sitting in a situation where, if they win this game against LSU, maybe they jump into that last 4-in conversation in the NCAA tournament. But if they really want to solidify themselves a spot on Selection Sunday, beating Arkansas would do that. So, if you get an Ole Miss team Saturday afternoon, they're going to be fired up and ready to play. And then LSU, the drill with those guys. I mean, Arkansas just played them, 2 weeks ago maybe, and came away with a solid victory. They struggled a little bit early in that one too, but pulled away late and got the win. But it's not easy. That Cam Thomas, who leads the SEC in scoring. We know about Trendon Watford and Darius Days, those 2 forwards that are difficult matchups for Arkansas. And then also, Javonte Smart, just one of the best senior all-around guards in the league. So either way, Arkansas is going to be challenged. They're going to need to rest up. I didn't even mention J.D. Notae. As well as he played, he was running off into the tunnel, throwing up in a trash can 2 or 3 times throughout the game, towards the end of the first half and then at halftime. So, he's going to have to get get the man some electrolytes or something. Musselman said after the game he didn't know if maybe he had food poisoning. Musk said he didn't feel too good himself. So, we'll see what comes of that. Anytime you have something like that going on, you got to worry about guys getting dehydrated, which could mean they're extra sore. But Arkansas's got all the resources in the world. They're taking care of. He's living the life of luxury right now. J.D. Notae. He's probably got his feet propped up, a couple Gatorades in his hand, and he's chilling and relaxing. And I don't know if they'll meet up this evening and talk about who wins this game and go over some initial scouting report. Maybe Musk just lets them sleep and they'll get together and talk about it. At breakfast in the morning. The plus side is you've already played both of these teams, so you have a pretty good baseline of what's going on. And obviously Muss has probably assigned an assistant coach to each team to go ahead and get a preliminary scouting report ready. So they'll be ready to roll. Exciting times. Arkansas moves on to the SEC tournament semifinals once again with a 70-64 win over Missouri, a good Missouri team. Another big win for Arkansas. Pick up another one tomorrow on Saturday. Maybe you start to creep into that number 2 seed conversation for Selection Sunday. You can't beat that. We'll be back, win or lose, rain or shine. It's sprinkling a little bit out here now. But tomorrow after the game, with a little bit more live reaction. Again, this has been Curtis Wilkerson with HawgSports.com. Appreciate you tuning in. Everybody have a good night.